What's up, everyone? So I am back with another YouTube video. I just wanted to do a video on kind of what I've noticed has worked really well for me as far as what has helped kind of blow up my squat over the years. So since I've started powerlifting, my squat is definitely the lift that I've made the most improvement with. I've made some gains in bench and deadlift, which is great, but I mean, I've really noticed a lot in my squat over the years. So today I want to talk about how I went from this 396-pound squat, which was in my first meet in September of 2022, and how I went from that to my most recent 512-pound squat, which I hit at state championships in March of 2025. So basically, what I'm going to talk about today is how I put 190, or I wish, how I put on 116 pounds onto my squat in the last 2.5 years. So some different things are going to work for different people, but this is kind of what I've noticed has helped me the most over the years. Um, some of the biggest things that are going to help you in any aspect of training are consistency. I mean, just in your training, being in the gym when you're supposed to be there, your sleep patterns, making sure you're getting around 8 hours of sleep as many nights as you can, and having your diet dialed in. So making sure you're hitting your macros, hitting your calories, depending on whether you're in a deficit, you're at maintenance, you're in a bulk. These are all things that are going to help out all three of your lifts as a power lifter. So that kind of goes without saying. But outside of those factors, I'm going to go over what I found to be about the five most important factors in blowing up my squat. So the first one would be switching from high bar to low bar. As you saw in that first video, when I squatted 396 in my first meet, I was squatting in a high bar position, and I've since switched to a low bar squat. So for those of you who might not know the difference, a high bar squat is when the bar is balanced more on your traps, and a low bar squat, you're more balancing the bar on your rear delt, so it's further down your back. So what this does is it creates the ability to use more of your muscles in your squat. So if you're squatting high bar, you're really using a lot of your quads. When you're squatting low bar, you're still using your quads, but you're using more of your glutes, you're using more of your hamstrings, you're using more of your back. So you're able to use more muscles. And I think that is obviously the biggest factor in what has really helped my squat over the years. So when I went to my first meet, I kind of noticed I was one of very few people squatting high bar, and all the big squatters were squatting low bar. So that was kind of just something that after the meet, I knew I was going to have to change around. So I started training low bar before my second competition, and there is a little bit of a learning curve. I mean, it doesn't feel super natural at first. My shoulder kind of hurt a little bit at first. I mean, I've had shoulder or issues with my left shoulder for a long time. I had surgery on it in high school. But after a while, I got more comfortable with it. And as soon as you do get comfortable with it, it blows up your squat instantly. I mean, you notice almost immediately once you get the bar path down, the movement pattern down, everything just starts to move a little more smoothly. So I think switching from high bar to low bar was the thing that helped my squat the most over these past 2.5 years. So if you are a power lifter, if you're looking to get into powerlifting, that's definitely something I would recommend switching over to quick as you can. So points two, three, and four, and five are all going to kind of feed off of one another. But point number two is to what I think helped blow up my squat the most over these years was bulking. So that probably goes without saying, or I'm sure many of you are thinking like, yeah, obviously. But some people might not realize if you're putting on body weight consistently over time, it's going to help all of your lifts. But squat is definitely one it helps out a lot with. So my first three competitions, I was competing in the 75 kilo weight class, which is 165.3 pounds. I was a little bit heavier than that. I was always cutting down under that weight class. But through time, I've continued to get a little bit bigger. So I think my first meet, I was probably walking around like 172, 173 pounds most of the time, and got a little bit bigger into my third meet, where I was really at that point in time more like 176, 177 most of the time. And then my fourth meet was my first meet at 82.5 kilos, which is 181.8 pounds. That first meet, I was like 178. And then my fifth meet, which was my second meet at 82.5, I was a little overweight before meet day, but I cut back down. I used a gut cut. got back down to like, I think 81.65 kilos, which is 180 pounds. Right now, I'm currently sitting around like 84 kilos. Um, and I'm noticing as time goes along and as I put on a little bit more body weight, my squat seems to go up with it. So there's definitely a correlation there. The more size you put on, the easier it is going to be to get stronger. I mean, like I said, that's gonna be a factor on all three of your lifts. But definitely something I notice more on squat. And when I say to bulk, when I say to put on weight, that's a good thing. But I would try to avoid dirty bulking, so putting on just like massive amounts of weight at one period of time. So in between meets 4 and 5, I took a year and I put on about 3 to 3.5 kilos. So about that 6.6 to 7.7 pounds. And I had some great strength gains along the way. I I don't think you have to put on a massive amount of weight in a short amount of time to see these effects, but I did notice that bulking really helped out my squat. Point number three that I think helped out my squat is training for hypertrophy. So that's just a fancy way of saying getting bigger. Um, so as fun as it is to hit 1 rep maxes, or 2 rep maxes or 3 rep maxes and put some heavy weight on the bar, that's not how you're going to put on size. So that is a great way. So if you're doing like 1, 2 rep maxes, is a great way to develop power. If you're doing 3, 4, 5 rep maxes, great way to develop strength. But after a while, your body's going to be tapped out at a certain body weight. You need to be able to put on more size. So training for hypertrophy obviously kind of goes hand in hand with bulking. If you're eating more calories, your body is going to be more likely to grow. It's going to want to grow more. So also adding in some higher rep sets, that is definitely, I feel like, helped my squat as well. And sometimes you have to kind of go to an uncomfortable place to get to the results you want. So very recently, about 2 weeks ago, I finished up a block where I was hitting 7 rep maxes on squat, bench, and deadlift. I'm not going to say that it was the most fun thing in the world, but I definitely think that kind of training for 4 weeks helped me put on size. And I was doing back down sets with a lot of volume. I added more volume to some of my accessory work, which is what I'm going to get into next. So my fourth point. So taking your accessories seriously. I think a lot of times when we think about any of the big three, squat, bench, or deadlift, obviously we want to train those lifts frequently. We want to work hard at those lifts, and that's a great thing. You're going to get better at those lifts the more you do them. But don't sandbag your accessories. Do them and treat them just like you would your primary lifts. So really taking care of your accessories and doing what you should be doing is a very important factor in kind of getting all of your lifts better. And find accessories on your secondary days that get you under a barbell. So for myself, even though I said I switched from low bar or high bar squats to low bar squats, I still do high bar squats a lot on my secondary days. So things I do, I'm doing pause squats. I'm doing ascent pause squats. So basically that means I'm pausing after I get out of the hole, where I'm kind of like finding my sticking point and trying to pause there. I'm doing box squats. Sometimes I do front squats. And obviously front squats is in that front rack position. But most of the time on my secondary days, I'm squatting in a high bar position. Again, help with some of that quad growth, create some more difficulty, and just to do things in a different way. So you don't need to be squatting low bar all the time. Squatting high bar is totally fine on other days in training. You don't need to squat low bar every single day. And find some accessories where you're not under a barbell that are going to complement your squat. So for myself, I love Bulgarian split squats. I find that helps a lot. I love belt squats. I understand that not a lot of gyms have those, but if you go to a powerlifting gym, you will probably see a belt squat. I love using the belt squat. I think that's something for a lot of longer limbed lifters. I have longer femurs for my height. I'm about 5'10". But I'm definitely someone who, I have longer arms, I have longer legs. If you have a belt squat, I would definitely recommend using that if you are a longer limbed lifter. It really helps just get that extra quad work in. So love belt squats. Some other things, leg presses, single leg presses, lunges. These are all things that I feel like have really helped me over the years. And train close to failure on those exercises. So those accessory movements, they're not going to fatigue you as much as squat, bench, or deadlift. So really on all your accessory movements, try to train close to failure. Those things are going to help a lot. And my fifth point that I feel like really helped me blow up my squat over these years is just being honest with myself about weak points. So if you constantly have the same sticking point, which I know I do, if you watch me when I squat, it's about halfway up. I get to a sticking point where I really have to grind through. Out of the hole, I pop out of the hole, and once I get past that sticking point, the last half of my squat is easy, but I know that that is the weakest part of my squat. So for example, that's why I say I like to train those ascent pauses. So I try to find my sticking point and I try to pause there, and that's something I work pretty frequently. Because even though that's not the most fun thing to train, it's something that's necessary in order to get that squat to where I want it. If you have a weak body part, train that harder when you're doing accessories. So for example, like I said, I have longer limbs. My quads are not really what powers me through my squat. Like my back is always strong enough on my squat. But sometimes I feel like my quads give out on me a little bit. So training my quads a little bit closer to failure, and just working them a little bit harder. I feel like that's something that has helped my squat as well. I still need to get my quads stronger, but I have added a lot of size to my legs over the years. Um, and like I said, with the long limbs, we're not all built like squat specialists. I am not built like a squat specialist, but I've put on a lot of weight into my onto my squat over the years. Um, I am definitely built more like a deadlift specialist, the long arms. I'm a conventional puller. My deadlift's always been my best lift. But I've worked really hard on squat and on bench to get myself better at those lifts. I want to be a more well-rounded lifter. So understand that you might not be built like Russell Orhe, or other squat specialists, Austin Perkins. You might not be built like them, but just because you're not built like them doesn't mean you can't have a big squat. Certain people are going to have different leverages, but those are some things that I feel like can really help you. So just to review again, the points I feel like switching from high bar to low bar, that was the biggest one. Bulking, training for hypertrophy, taking accessories seriously, and then finally being honest with yourself about your weak points. Those are things that I've really noticed for myself that have helped my squat out a lot. Those are not all the factors that I feel like have helped me, but when I'm thinking of my top five, I really do feel like those are the things that have helped me out a bunch. And I understand 116 pounds in 2.5 years. I know that's not the craziest progress on squat, but it's been steady the whole time. And it wasn't like I was someone who just kind of started out of nowhere. I'd been squatting my whole life. I hadn't really been pushing as far as like squatting to be as strong as possible in like a powerlifting perspective. So like for a 1 rep max, but I already had a pretty solid base when I had hit that 396-pound squat in my first meet. And now that I'm over 500, I feel like I've made a lot of progress. And these are just some things I wanted to share with you guys to see if maybe these are some things that help you out with your squats. Not everything I'm going to tell you is going to work exactly for you. But like I said, these are just some things that I feel like are useful for a lot of people, whether you're a beginner, intermediate, or advanced power lifter. Want to say thanks to everyone for watching. I appreciate everyone keeping up with my YouTube channel. If you haven't already and you enjoyed the video, please like, share, and subscribe. And I will see everyone in the next one. Peace.